welcome into AU Nation. Each week we bring together members of the Auburn Student Media Group and discuss the latest topics in sports. I'm Evan Blank. On today's show, we'll discuss Auburn baseball's hot start, fill in some blanks, and end the show answering our burning question. Now, let's introduce today's panel of experts. Our first guest today is Stephone Sheffield. He is a sports analyst for Eagle Eye TV. Stephone, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's always a privilege to be on such a great show.
Hey, we love having you on, man. And our other expert today is Eli Hiskey. He's a sports writer for the Auburn Plainsman. Eli, welcome back. How are you?
Stephone took the words right out of my mouth. I'm feeling great, and I'm ready to knock this out.
All right. Well, hey, let's knock it out, and we'll keep it local. Just down the road from us is Plainsman Park, and Auburn baseball is off to their best start since 2007 as the Tigers have a 7-1 record thus far. In just his second season leading the team, coach Butch Thompson appears to have the baseball program headed in the right direction. What do you think has been the biggest reason that the baseball team has gotten off to such a good start? Eli, we'll start with you.
I really got to go with the pitching. I mean, the pitching has been fantastic all season long so far. Keegan Thompson against Holy Cross went 8 innings, and then I think in the next game, our pitchers combined for 13 strikeouts. I think if they can continue pitching well, it's going to be a good season for the Tigers.
You know, I agree. The pitching has been phenomenal, and also the errors have been few,
Yeah.
So, if they capitalize on that, I see a good season for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, defensively, they've looked really good to me thus far, but I'm with both of you guys. The pitching's been awesome. I went to the Saturday game, I believe it was, against Holy Cross, and Casey Mize just mowed the guys down. I think he had 12 strikeouts.
12.
I mean, just what an amazing performance, and that's, I think, what's going to be fun about this Auburn team. They've shown the ability to score. I think they scored 13 runs in the finale of the series, but boy, they've really looked quite good. But we move on, and now we look forward. The Tigers still have 11 more non-conference games before they start SEC play. What do you think is one area that the Tigers need to improve on before the really highly ranked Florida Gators come into town on March 17th, Stephone?
Really, like I said, the errors, if they get the lead, hold it. Don't do anything to compromise that. And like you said, stay on top of the pitching. The bat needs to be a top T. I think they'll have a good chance against the Florida Gators.
I think mainly what the Tigers need to do is Butch needs to find one solid starting lineup right now. He's kind of interchanging. We got 2 shortstop, 2 second basemen. And early on in the season, that's fine. But I think as we go into SEC play, if the Tigers want to do well, I think they need to find that one lineup that really works for them.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how they go, especially, I mean, that's like hitting a brick wall coming into Florida to start SEC play. SEC pitching is a whole lot different than these non-conference teams. Now, they're playing good non-conference teams, granted, but Florida pitching is going to be something else.
I think this upcoming series against David Lipscomb is going to be a huge test because they have a phenomenal pitcher. I know he's preseason All-American. He's projected to be a top pick in the draft this year. So I think that's going to be a good example of how we're going to fare against Florida.
Yeah, going against Florida is like going against LeBron in the finals.
Right.
It's almost impossible, but it can be done.
Yeah, it's going to be a great series, and it's going to be a fun season down here on the Plains. But after the break, we're going to whip out our dictionaries and fill in some blanks. Don't go anywhere. This is Eagle Eye TV.
I hope that you've been able to learn a strong work ethic surrounded by character, integrity, perseverance, so that when your 1 second comes, you'll be prepared for it.
Chris Davis.
45, there goes Davis!
Your 1 second, our 1 second is now. And our lives have been guided by the principles of one of the greatest academic institutions in the country, Auburn University.
Welcome back to AU Nation, and folks, let's continue our show by filling in some blanks. I'll give you a sports phrase, and your job is to fill in that blank. Pretty simple concept. So, guys, we're going to start out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Antonio Brown's new $68 million deal is blank. Eli, we'll start with you on this.
I think it's a statement. I think the Steelers are showing the rest of the NFL that they still have faith in Antonio Brown, and that the whole Facebook Live video was one of the most overblown media stories of the year. And I think that this deal, obviously, it's a little overpaid. I mean, I don't think any receiver deserves $67 million, but I mean, it's a statement, or $68 million, and I love it. I think they're showing their faith in him, and I think they're giving him a really good shot to continue to be a Steeler and succeed.
Stephone.
Well, I'm going to say well-deserved and smart. If you look at Antonio Brown's play, you would think he was drafted, first round, second round?
Yeah.
No. He's like Tom Brady. He was picked 195 in 2010 draft. So, he was second in touchdowns, second in receptions, fifth in yards, and fourth in yards per game. If that's not screaming, give me more money, I don't know what is. And then I say smart because, Ben Roethlisberger has come out and said, I may retire. This is the Steelers saying, we got your guys. We signed them. This is the twilight of your career. Give us all you have so we can make this run to the Patriots. That's what I think they're saying.
Yeah, I'm going to actually, Eli stole my word. I said statement, and boy, it is certainly a statement. Best receiver in football, in my opinion. Now, you can take guys like Des Bryant, Odell Beckham. It's all really close there at the top. I think Antonio Brown's the best receiver in football, and the Steelers locking him up is going to be awesome for them.
And his play at 5'10", 181, it's like an undersized cornerback.
Yeah.
And he plays as if he's 6'4", I love the way he gets the ball. And, the Steelers made a good move in doing that.
And he was able to succeed this year with Martavis Bryant suspended for the year. Sammy Coates was dealing with a hand injury all year. So they were triple teaming him at times, and he was still able to get out of coverage and come in fifth in yards, I think he said, and still perform to the best of his ability. So that says something.
Yeah, but now we're going to turn to the hardwood, and news broke recently that Raptors all-star point guard Kyle Lowry will require wrist surgery and be sidelined until at least the start of the postseason. The Raptors will need to blank until Lowry returns. Stephone.
I say hold steady. They're third in the East right now. At worst, if they just go 500, they'll probably be, fifth seed. So, losing Lowry is a big blow because he was averaging 22 points and 7 assists. But Corey Joseph and Wright, they're not Kyle Lowry, but they can provide, subtle offense. So if they hold it steady, they'll still be in good position, I believe.
I think they need to hang on. They need to hang on to the third seed or even jump up to the second seed. The Wizards are right on their back, and I think they need as much time to prepare for LeBron as they can. And they need to get Kyle Lowry back. I don't know when he's coming back. If it's the beginning of the postseason, that's great. But if he's not back before the second round, then they need to hold on to the third or second seed so they can wait until the the conference finals to meet up with LeBron.
Yeah, I think the Raptors need to panic until Kyle Lowry returns. It's brutal to lose a guy of his caliber, especially on a team that, they've got some other good players, but really it's a two-man team between him and DeRozan, and I don't think there was any chance of them right now jumping Boston for the 2 seed. And with this, like Eli said, the Wizards breathing down their necks, and the East isn't getting any easier. It's getting better and better every year, and I think they got a small window.
Right. It's like they made a jump with getting Serge Ibaka, but then took 3 steps back with the hurting of Lowry. So, like you said, they just keep it steady, at least 4th seed. That way they don't have to face LeBron too early because that would be terrible for them.
All right, and we move now to the world of college football and the team across the state in Tuscaloosa. Alabama hiring Brian Day-Bull as their offensive coordinator is blank. Eli.
I think it's a solid move. He was a tight end coach for the Patriots, and he won 5 Super Bowls with them. He's got Gronk and Martellus Bennett, so he's capable in that sense. And he was an offensive coordinator, I think, for 3 other teams: the Browns, Dolphins, and Chiefs, I believe. And he didn't have great success with them, but I think his game plan is going to work with Alabama. He wants to up the tempo and attack the defenses, and I think that Alabama has a good offense for that.
I say it's different. If you look at Alabama's past 2 coordinators, you knew who they were. Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin. You knew their name. This guy is really flying under the radar. His last college job was actually under Saban at Michigan State as a grad assistant. But he does like the pro-style offense with, he put a little wildcat in there, which is basically what Saban wants. He's tired of spread, I believe. So, it's a different move, but still a smart one, I think.
Yeah, to me, it's just interesting. There's really always been this connection between Nick Saban and Bill Belichick back to when they coached on the Browns together, back when Saban was a coordinator on the Browns. And there's sort of always been this collaboration between the two. You see a lot of times Belichick will draft Alabama players. I mean, obviously, a lot of people want to draft Alabama players right now. But it's interesting to see a guy stepping down from the NFL to come take that job. It'll be interesting to see how that works out for Alabama.
Yeah, like you said, he went from the best in the NFL to best in college. So, he's pretty good move, kind of, sort of.
All right, but we move from college football to one of college football's greatest players of all time, but not in the sport that we would expect him to. Tim Tebow arriving at Met spring training is blank, Stephone.
I really don't have a word for it. It's just a guy who's not playing football anymore. Like you said, one of the greatest in college. But he had a dream. He's chasing it. I say live it up, sign some autographs, publicity, just live it up, I guess.
That was my word, publicity stunt. I don't think there's a chance in the world that he ends up playing for the Mets, but having him at spring training, it gets the fans out, so I like the move. I mean, like you said, you can just go sign some autographs and have fun, and kids are going to love to see him. I mean, he's an iconic figure in American sports, so if he's going to be able to show up at Mets spring training, I'm all for it.
Yeah, the way I look at this is a distraction. Tim Tebow just coming up, and the way he's done it, I mean, last year when they were doing their, not spring training, but the minor league games, and he was, playing the games, but then he was flying back to do SEC Nation, and you don't really know if he's fully committed to it, and it just happened to be that a book of his was coming out at the same time. It's very publicity stunty, and I'm not a big fan of all of that.
It's similar to Jordan when he did it, except, like you said, Jordan was actually full in when he played baseball. Like you said, Tebow, he's here sometimes, there sometimes. Like, doesn't seem like he says he's committed, but he's not putting the same effort like he did with football. So I agree.
Yeah.
All right, and we move now to the world of college basketball. Gonzaga, they were undefeated and they lost. Gonzaga losing to BYU and ending their undefeated run is blank. Eli.
I wouldn't say it's expected, but it's not necessarily a shock to me. I didn't expect them to run the table, and I don't know if no one should jump off the bandwagon right now. I mean, they're still a really good team, only one loss. They haven't performed well in the tournament lately, but who knows? I mean, they've played extremely well this year, and if they can bounce back from this loss, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they can do at the tournament.
Stephone.
Yeah, I agree. Not expected, but not shocking, BYU knows Gonzaga. They really do. And, they had key turnovers back-to-back down the stretch and failed to box out with 17 seconds left, so really they beat themselves. 29-1 is still a pretty great record. So, like you said, I wouldn't jump off the bandwagon just yet. They can still make a run deep in the tournament. They are the number one seed. They already locked up the conference title. So, they can still make a pretty good push in the tournament.
Yeah, I think Gonzaga losing that game is actually good for them. You got to face some type of adversity. All these teams that have gone in, I think the last 4 teams that have gone into the tournament undefeated, none of them have won the championship. And, the most recent example is Kentucky a couple years ago. There was a St. Joseph's team, too, that didn't do that as well, that was undefeated for a while. But they have to face some type of adversity. They have to know what losing feels like in order to better themselves and move forward. And it's going to be tough enough to go into that big tournament and have to play 2 or 3 really good teams in back-to-back games.
Right.
Yep.
All right, but now the NBA trade deadline has passed, and a lot of people are evaluating the moves that the teams made. But what about teams that didn't make a move at the deadline? We'll talk about one of these teams when we return after this commercial break. This is AU Nation.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
The NBA trade deadline has come and gone. Nerlens Noel is headed off to Dallas. Lou Williams is going to team up with James Harden in Houston. PJ Tucker is headed north of the border to join the Raptors, and several other trades took place as well. But what about the trades that didn't happen? The Boston Celtics have several draft picks at their disposal and are currently second in the Eastern Conference. What do you make of Danny Ainge and Boston's decision to not acquire the likes of Jimmy Butler or Paul George at the deadline? And was this the right move, or are the Celtics' championship window closing? And that's the question today in our burning question. And Eli, I guess we'll start with you. What do you think about what the Celtics did at the deadline?
I can kind of see where they're coming from. I mean, they have loads of youth if they want to build for the future. But like you said earlier when we were talking about the Raptors, the East is getting better every single year. And if you have the opportunity to make a move to get Paul George on your team with Isaiah Thomas, you take that opportunity. I mean, if there was ever a year, why not this year? I mean, Isaiah Thomas is playing out of his mind. And if you could add one more piece like Paul George gave the Heat trouble when LeBron was down there in the playoffs. If the Boston Celtics could have gotten Paul George, maybe even Jimmy Butler, and met up with the Cavs in the conference finals, then I think they would have given them a run for their money, and it would have been the best shot they had to beat them. I don't know if they can do that with the draft picks that they're going to get. Because, I mean, LeBron might be gone by the time their youth has developed into a time where they are competing for a championship, and that's why I kind of understand the move. But at the same time, I feel like you got to go for it.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas still relatively young and in the middle of his prime at 28 years old. But Stephone, I mean, no moves at the deadline. I don't think anyone thought the Celtics wouldn't do anything.
Well, I'm not really shocked. You know, Danny seems to know what he's doing. You know, remember the Garnett trade a couple years back? You know, everybody said, oh, that's crazy. He got Garnett and Ray Allen, so he's made some pretty smart moves. Not making this trade for Paul George or Jimmy Butler, or Paul George has mentioned that he wanted to go to L.A. and play under Magic. Jimmy Butler, I don't think he's leaving Chicago. And by not doing this, Gordon Hayward can basically just walk into the Celtics, you know, their facility and say, I want to play here in the summer because his contract is up. By not signing those two guys, you know, they have the cap space to do that. And they're, like you said, they do have top picks, so they can draft high, you know, top two players with guards. They don't really need a guard. Because Isaiah Thomas is playing MVP-like. So I'm not really shocked that Danny didn't make a move. I'm actually behind it because, like I said, Gordon Hayward is basically going to walk into your organization and say, I want to play here, and they can give him a contract right off the bat.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about it, though, is Danny Ainge, when we've seen him as a GM, he's been great at signing free agents. He's been a wizard in trades, but he hasn't really been great at the draft. And obviously the big pick he held on to that he didn't want to get rid of in these trades was this year's Brooklyn pick, which has a great chance to be #1 overall in the lottery. But when you look at this draft, it's so guard heavy, and especially with Isaiah Thomas. I mean, you got guys like Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, and a bunch of other guards in this draft. What do you think of just, you know, taking a chance on a draft pick you don't know about and potentially having a bust? Because Danny Ainge hasn't really drafted that well as a GM for the most part.
Well, if you look at Jimmy Butler, you're like, prospects only go down. You know, I don't expect his stock would be even higher in the summer. So by not making this move, he probably gave up, like you said, potentially the #1 pick for a prospect who's just going to be cheaper in the future. So, you know, he can still make a move come summer. But like you said, he hasn't really been drafting well, but I still like what he did because, you know, you still have Gordon Hayward coming in, you know, in the summer, well, projectively.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. And, I mean, like you said, maybe even in the summer they do choose to move that draft pick for someone else. And I understand what you're saying. I mean, they will build well. And if Gordon Hayward does walk right into the Celtics facility, then they did just save themselves a lot of picks because, yes, Paul George and Jimmy Butler, who says they might even stay with the Celtics and sign a long-term contract. So I think if they can get a free agent like Gordon Hayward to come in on their own choosing, then that, I agree, it would be better than a trade made at this deadline.
But like you said, it does seem like the Celtics are just one piece away, you know, from contending. Well, they're contenders now, but
they can't take on LeBron with only Isaiah Thomas.
Like you said, there is one piece they're missing. Like, I would love to see them get a piece, but I understand what Danny's doing, like, in the long run.
Yeah, it's just wild to see because I think what I've heard from stuff over that deadline was he was hung up on not wanting to get rid of that Brooklyn pick, and for some reason he was hung up on Jay Crowder, which I don't really understand. I don't know if you guys have heard about that at all.
I did hear they
I guess he wants to keep Jay Crowder. I don't get this falling in love with role player guys when you can maybe trade for a guy like Paul George, because I think, you know, maybe it might not have been enough, but I would have to think that Nets #1 pick and Jay Crowder might have been pretty close to enough to trade for like a Paul George, even if it is just an 18-month rental.
Right. You could have even went for Carmelo. You know, him and Phil Jackson have been falling out. He tried to give him to the Clippers for next to nothing. So Carmelo did go on record and say, I'll either play with Chris Paul or LeBron. Well, if you're playing for the Celtics, you know, I think he'll take that. Like you said, Jay Crowder, he's a role player at best. Definitely not a star and small forward in the league. So, like you said, plenty of moves could have been made, but I'm not against him not making a decision. Well, not moving, I should say.
Yeah, I understand what his decision was, and I might have made another decision. I might have jumped for a trade with Paul George, but I understand wanting to win as time goes on and not just this one season, throwing all your cards in one deck. Yeah.
Well, the Celtics, I mean, they've got the most assets in the league, so it'll be interesting to see, with no action at this deadline, what they'll do moving into the summer and even beyond that. Stephone and Eli, thank you guys for coming on today's show. You guys were great. We can't wait to have you guys back again soon.
I'll be happy to come back. This was a blast.
Same here.
All right. Well, folks, that'll do it for AU Nation. I'm Evan Blank, and we appreciate you for watching today's show. We'll see you all again next week.